My name is James Shepard with CC Sales Pro, and we are going to get started with this week's webinar called Back to Basics. Back to Basics. This should be a pretty short webinar. I'm hoping to have it a little bit more interactive and open it up for some feedback and questions. To be honest with you, I'm having a little difficulty focusing on work today. My wife and I just learned 2 days ago, that we were going to be able to adopt two little kids. And so I left my two children where they're staying right now at their aunt, and drove straight over here to do the webinar. So if I don't make any sense today, it's because I'm a new dad and I have an excuse. So I figured I should probably make the webinar very basic. So that's what I did. So today we're going to talk about back to the basics. We're going to start out with our core values, of course, as we always do, and kind of getting back to the basics of our core values. And then we are going to move on from there to an update on HioPos. I'm not sure if we're going to have the interview that I promised. I apologize. If we don't, I'm going to go over some of the stuff we talked about, and then I'll record the interview later and repost it. David had some other things he had going on today with, he's a sales agent, so we all know how that is. So you can have a last-minute customer service issue. So but we'll see. He might be able to get on, and if not, then we'll record the interview a little bit later on. So, by the way, thank you, Bill, for the congratulations, and thanks everybody who emailed me with the congratulations about the adoption. We're very, very excited. Keep us in your prayers. Hopefully, the whole process will be finalized where we'll be able to have them around the middle of June at our house and have them living with us, and then probably about 3 to 6 months later, we'll actually be able to go through with the adoption. So. Okay, here we go. Let's get it right into it. Let's first of all talk about our core values. And we're going to, again, the idea today is getting back to basics. So let's talk about the basics of our core values. The basics of our core values. First of all, always learning. What are you reading right now? Now, I actually wanted to open this up a little bit, and I know we don't have a whole lot of people on here today because I just kind of put this one out yesterday. So, but any of you have a book that you would recommend? Is there anybody on here? If you do, just type it out in the chat box over to the right, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute your line. If anybody has a good book that you're reading, it doesn't have to be on business, doesn't have to be on sales. One of the things about always learning and the core value there is we believe that any knowledge that you're gaining, anything that you're learning, even if it's not directly related to business, we believe that is going to be profitable for you in the future. For instance, right now, one book that I'm reading a book called The Whole Brain Child, and it's a child rearing book written by some neuroscientists that are also parents. It's very, very interesting. It's actually really down to earth and had like 1,000 5-star reviews. So I thought I would listen to that on my audiobook, and it's a really, really good book. So for those of you that are parents and you're interested in that, that's a really good one. Here's some others. EntreLeadership. Oh, Kevin, you just nailed it, man. EntreLeadership is like my favorite book of the year, of the last 2 years, I would say. I have that one on my Audible app on my phone, and I've probably listened to it 7 or 8 times. Just about every time I go on a trip, I plug that in and listen to it on the whole trip. So yeah, EntreLeadership, if you're looking to really build a real business, that's a great one. Michael says The Time of Our Lives by Tom Brokaw. Yeah, you know what? I haven't read that yet. I read The Greatest Generation, but thanks for that's a good tip. I'll have to check that one out. The Times of Our Lives by Tom Brokaw. So there's another one. So again, just the basics of our core values. Always learning. It's really simple. What are you learning right now? What are you reading? Are you learning intentionally? Are there things that you want to learn about? Another reason I like to learn is that really does a lot to control my emotions and my energy level. If I'm going to be for instance, right now we're getting ready to adopt kids, so of course I'm reading a lot of parenting books because I want to get into that parenting mindset. Whereas, when I'm really trying to get motivated for business, I'm probably reading EntreLeadership. And so, reading different books at different times can have a really, really big impact. So make sure you're learning. That's very important. Our next core value, always living. Really simple. Again, back to the basics of always living. Do you have a schedule? Do you have priorities written down somewhere? And are you keeping your schedule? It's really that simple. Things happen in life that can mess up your schedule, and that's understandable, and you have to work with that. But there's never really an excuse to not have a schedule or not have a plan. Even if your plan's going to get blown to pieces, at least you start with a plan, and then you can always make changes to the plan. But I find it's a lot easier to make changes to the plan than it is when there's just nothing, in your schedule and you're just, putting out fires. I think it's really a common misconception people have that if you're really scheduled, that you're not spending a lot of time on the important things because you're just too busy. And that's not true. If you have a good schedule, you're normally going to spend more time because you're not going to be constantly putting out fires. You're going to be more prepared, proactive, and you're going to be able to plan out your day by your priorities. So, questions would be, do you have a list of priorities? And when I say priorities, I don't mean do you have a list of, your top priority and then your second priority and your third priority. I don't really work that way personally, and I don't recommend that you do either. I believe the best way to work is just to have a list of all your priorities, everything that is important to you, and everything that's important to you is going to take a different amount of time. And then look at your schedule and make sure that all of those things are in your schedule as much as they should be. So, one of your priorities might be a bowling league, and one of your priorities might be your spouse. Well, it's, your spouse is going to take a lot more of your time than the bowling league. So you don't need to worry about, which is more important. Just what are your priorities? What's important to you? And then put those into your schedule the appropriate amount of time that they're going to require. There are some things that really aren't that important, but they take a lot of your time. And so it's anything that's important enough to do, put it in your schedule and get it done. And then make sure you're keeping your schedule every week. Next, always leveraging. Is there anything you are doing that could be automated or delegated? I actually have a really good example for this that you guys are going to see firsthand in the next week or so. One of the things that Angela does is Angela sets up phone calls for me. And so if you want to call with me, usually I'll email that to Angela. She'll email you. You guys will email back and forth. You'll set up a time. And so it turns out that Angela's spending probably like half of her time just doing my schedule and setting up these phone calls. And so I was thinking about this core value of always leveraging a few weeks ago, and I was talking to Angela and saying, what are some things you're doing that we could automate? And she was like, well, I don't know of what we could do that we could automate. And I said, well, what takes a lot of your time? And she said, well, it does take a lot of my time to do your schedule. And so we started talking about that, and then I got Paul Boyce involved in the conversation. And within about an hour, he has shown me this setup that I'm going to have for you guys where Angela can go in once a week and she can add all of these different time blocks. So I might have 20 or 25 different call times a day. And then I have that a link on my website. And so all she would have to do is basically send somebody to that link. And then when they're at that link, then they can they can select the time that they want to talk to me, and then it's going to add it to my Google Calendar. So it was really interesting that we were able to automate a process like that we really didn't think could be automated. So that's something that can be done. That's something that can be automated. Next, our fourth core value, always add value, always adding value. So my question there would be, are you adding value to your important relationships? Are you adding value to every client that you work with? Now, this really gets into doing the right thing. Are you doing the right thing for your customers? Are you adding value to them? Let's not get greedy. Let's not get shady. Let's make sure that we're always adding value, always doing the right thing for our customers. You guys have a wonderful day today.